That report from Alex Jones.
A shadowy government with its own Air Force, its own Navy, its own fundraising mechanism, and the ability to pursue its own ideas of the national interest, free from all checks and balances, and free from the law itself.
During the 1970s, Senator Frank Church held the Church Committee hearings where decades of secret, clandestine, deep state operations were made public to the world. From mind control of small kidnapped children in America to government narcotics trafficking to the structure of the deep, permanent, secret government itself, a lot of incredible revelations came out. Then, during the Iran-Contra hearings of the 1980s, even more came out. As a young researcher, I began to look into this information in the early 1990s and became somewhat of a history buff on it. That's why it's been very frustrating for me, who is informed from the congressional record, to cover this information and have controlled corporate media, in many cases working directly for the deep state, lie to the public and tell you that I'm fake news. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we now have a high-level CIA whistleblower who's gone public and given a lengthy speech detailing the very structure of the shadow government which controls the ever-expanding deep state. Kevin Shipp worked for more than 2 decades at the highest level of the Central Intelligence Agency in some of the most secretive projects. In the last decade, he's been quietly working with the former technical director of the National Security Agency, William Binney, to bring out legally what they can without violating the so-called national security laws that the deep state uses via the shadow government and the controlled corporate press to keep the American people in the dark. Kevin Shipp recently spoke live to a crowd at a geoengineering conference of scientists and press. Zero Hedge transcribed much of the video that's posted on Infowars.com as well as ZeroHedge.com. But in the interest of brevity, let me simply read from the transcript from Zero Hedge. Then I'm going to give you the rest of the story coming up here in a few minutes about what the goals of the shadow government actually are.
Okay.
From the article, high-ranking CIA agent blows whistle on deep state, shadow government. NSA and CIA at the top of the shadow government apparatus. Zero Hedge, September 16th, 2017.
So this is public
and here
forum.
we are covering it now, live on the 18th. A CIA whistleblower, Kevin Shipp, has emerged from the wolves' den to expose the deep state and the shadow government, which he calls 2 entirely separate entities. And again, the reason this is so important is he says there's a civil war in the deep state trying to alert the public to how the shadow government controls the deep state. The deep state's not the enemy. It was established after nuclear weapons were developed so that in case the main government got wiped out, there was a backup. But special interests have used the transference of power to the deep state to, again, set up a parallel government that's operating outside the American people's control and which operates directly against the American people. Let me get back to the article. From high-level CIA whistleblower Shipp's speech. The shadow government controls the deep state and manipulates our elected government behind the scenes, Shipp warned in a recent talk at the geoengineeringwatch.org conference. Shipp had a series of slides explaining how the deep state and shadow government functions, as well as the horrific crimes they are committing against U.S. citizens. Some of the revelations the former CIA anti-terrorism counterintelligence officer revealed included that Google Earth was set up through the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency and In-Q-Tel. Indeed, he is correct. The CIA and NGA owned the company Google acquired, Keyhole, Inc., paying an undisclosed sum for the company to turn its tech into what we now know as Google Earth. Another curious investor in Keyhole, Inc. was none other than venture capital firm In-Q-Tel, run by the CIA, according to a press release at the time. But, of course, it was In-Q-Tel money that helped found Google in the beginning as well. This is the controlled deployment of secret government technologies to the public with backdoor Trojan horses for global control. SHIP also disclosed that the agency known as the Joint Special Ops Command is the president's secret army, which he can use for secret assassinations, overturning governments, and things the American people don't know about. And that really first started with Delta Force in 1979, but now has expanded out into an entire sprawling complex, and it's not just the Army, but other branches of the military. FBI warrantless searches violate the Fourth Amendment with national security letters, which SHIP noted enables them to walk into your employer's office and demand all your financial records. And if he or she says anything about them being there, they can put your supervisor in jail or drop a case against themselves using the state's secret privilege law.
Damn.
Now, here's where it gets really important. The top of the shadow government is the National Security Agency and the Central Intelligence Agency, SHIP said. SHIP expressed that the CIA was created through the Council on Foreign Relations with no congressional approval, and historically the CFR is also tied into the mainstream media. He elaborated that the CIA was the, quote, central node of the shadow government and controlled all of the other 16 intelligence agencies, despite the existence of the DNI.
Ain't no
The
16.
agency also controls defense and intelligence contractors to manipulate the president and political decisions, has the power to start wars, torture, initiate coups, and commit false flag attacks, he said. As SHIP stated, the CIA was created through executive order by then-President Harry Truman by signing the National Security Act of 1947. Then the shadow government began to absorb the legitimate government and parlay American power into global domination.
So that's what
My
that
words,
federal
not SHIP's.
and state
Continuing
law
with
shit
SHIP,
is about.
the deep state is comprised the military-industrial complex, intelligence contractors, defense contractors, MIC lobbyists, Wall Street offshore accounts, Federal Reserve, IMF, World Bank, Treasury, foreign lobbyists, and central banks. But what is their ideology? I'm going to get to that. The rest of the story. In the shocking, explosive presentation, SHIP went on to express that there are over 10,000 secret sites in the United States that formed after 9/11. There are 1,291 secret